Thank you so very much for that warm welcome, and thank you for all of those of you who are in attendance today, from students all the way up through the rest of you. So it's really nice to be here with you and to moderate this panel on understanding marketable skills as we have them here in the state of Texas. I want to first introduce the panel topic to all of you. The Higher Education Institute at the University of California, Los Angeles has conducted a survey for the last 50 years. And the survey is entitled The American Freshman. Back in 1970, the survey began asking freshmen about the reasons they attended college. Now, back before my time, in 1976, 68% of the respondents said, "I want to be able to get a better job," as part of the important reasons for attending college. Now, between 1976 and 2006, which is in my time, the percentage hovered around 74%. After the recession in 2008, the percentage of people who had this response surged to 84% of respondents saying, "I need to get a better job," as a very important reason for their choice to attend college. And you know what? It hasn't dropped below 84% since then. Now, the increase in this percentage might be because people are better understanding higher education, whether that be at a community college or a university, that higher education is correlated with employment. The trend in data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics demonstrates that people with higher education have lower unemployment rates than people without a higher education credential. The other economic benefits include things like, compared to not completing higher education, higher annual wages, as well as higher lifetime earnings. Now, in 2013, a report by the College Board also found that outcomes for job satisfaction, social mobility, employer-supported retirement, employer-supported health insurance, general health outcomes, and civic engagement were all directly correlated with receiving a higher education credential. All of these factors are combined to the economic health and well-being of our population here in Texas, as well as for the population around the country. Now, the major impetus for the marketable skills component was to guide conversation towards the value that you achieve with getting higher education. We firmly believe that all degrees hold value in the marketplace. This is described in 60x30TX as marketable skills that are those values that are listed by employers that can be applied in a variety of work settings, including personal, cognitive, and applied skill areas. Now, these skills can be primary skills, they can be complementary skills, and they include curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities. The marketable skills goal is going to be challenging to meet, but by 2030, we want all graduates from Texas public institutions of higher education to have completed programs with identified marketable skills. When we do reach that goal, the efforts that we will have made to get there will be well worth it. Students will know and be able to communicate the skills that they're learning in their programs to potential employers. Parents will know and appreciate the value of their children's degrees, and families will be able to come together in understanding this return on investment, both in time and money, to those credentials. Now, this is a fantastic setting. It's a more intimate setting to be able to ask questions, so we definitely want to do that at the conclusion of this panel. But first, I'd like to introduce our panelists really quickly. First of all, we have Ms. C.J. Harris. Ms. C.J. Harris has been in the IT industry for over 24 years, and she's held various roles as a network analyst.
I said, I sound old.
But you don't look it.
Oh, good.
She's held roles as a network analyst, software engineer, software developer manager at the state of Texas agencies, as well as IBM. Collaboration with a mentor who had previously been a chief information officer led to her current role as the human resources manager for university recruiting operations at National Instruments Incorporated, overseeing operations for the US, Mexico, and Canada. Ms. Harris previously served as the Society for Women Engineers Central Texas Vice President, and she was recently elected as a member to the Board of Directors for the National Association of Colleges and Employers, or NACE. For the last 6 years, she has served as a team captain for the American Diabetes Association's Tour de Cure. Ms. Harris earned an undergraduate degree in Information Systems Technology from the University of Houston, University Park, and a graduate degree from Organizational Leadership and Ethics from St. Edward's University. Please help me in welcoming her. Seated next to her, we have Dr. Letha Zook. She is an experienced administrator with over 18 years of progressive leadership responsibilities. She has served in leadership and physical therapy programs, as well as dean and provost in 2 universities. During this time, she's worked with regional and specialized accreditation agencies for the candidacy and continued program approvals, including physical therapy, pharmacy, physician assistants, teacher preparation, and other allied health professions. Her scholarly work centers on pedagogy and assessment. Dr. Zook is a magna cum laude graduate of the University of Pennsylvania with a physical therapy degree. She earned a Master of Science in Pathokinesiology from New York University and her doctorate in Applied Physiology from Teachers College at Columbia University. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Letha Zook. Now, Dr. Zook, I wanted to pose the first question to you. One of the big questions, you were featured in an eCampus article on September 12th entitled, "What Does It Really Mean to Prepare Students for the Workforce?" In this article, you said it means a skill set across all disciplines. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you accomplished creating a set of skills across disciplines at the University of Charleston?
Sure, except I'm going to tell you a story that started back in 2000. So I was not a part of the University of Charleston at that point, but it has taken that long for us to get to where I think we need to be and where we are in relationship to that issue. One of the things that I think is interesting is somebody mentioned this earlier, is the tie-in of all the different goals together. I mean, you can't do one without the other, I think, and so I think I would like to first congratulate you as a group of how well you've put this together and how interdependent each of those goals are. And I also think, I'm coming from West Virginia, and so I also work with the HEPC there, and this is much bigger, and it's quite stunning to be here. So I am very pleased and very honored to be here. The University of Charleston took an article that was written by the State of Labor, the National Secretary of Labor in 1991. And in that article, it asked the question of what does work demand of education? So this discussion has been going on for quite a while. I think that all of us are kind of coming to it more because of the demands of what is being asked of us from the public, but it's been around for a long time. And what happened, and when I looked at what we looked at when we started this process to what your core curriculum is, they were very much the same. So I think you've already started to think about this in Texas in relationship to your core curriculum. And so what the University of Charleston, the president of the university has been there for 27 years, and he has shepherded us through this process. And his charge to the faculty was, we want you to look at what it is from this article, that was the keystone. What do we want each student to look like when they walk across the stage, independent of the major, and what does it mean for them to be able to walk into, off that stage into the workforce? We were fortunate to be able to get a grant, so all of you who are thinking of doing this, you might want to think about money, because it's very difficult to get faculty away from their jobs and their roles as educators to think in a higher fashion. And so that one of the things that they did at that point was they had a Title III grant, and they went through and had some very intense discussions over 5 years. What you see on the screen is the result of that discussion. And basically, if you look at that, and I don't think you would say that that is earth-shattering. There's nothing on that screen that you would say, oh, that is really going to help them become better workplace people. We understand that that's part of education. We want people to communicate. We want them to be able to do that both in writing and in speaking and in their verbal and nonverbal communications. We want them to be critical thinkers. I mean, so none of that is earth-shattering. I think what the University of Charleston did that was unique, and I saw this in your description of your the goal, is that a lot of us have done that at the foundational level, but we haven't done the next piece of that, which is in the center, which is the major. Having come from a professional program, you know, I know that they taught me critical thinking. You know, I know that they talked to me about ethical practice, but I put that together myself. I understood that I needed to take those pieces with me and go into the workforce. And I'm not saying that I'm an exceptional student, but I took a variant amount of, or different kind of courses, and I kind of pushed them together and said, oh, that's the connection. And I think what the University of Charleston has done, and what I would encourage you to think about as you're working through this with your faculty, is we said, no, it's not just courses. It's an intentional curriculum. And what I say to faculty now is, you have to make that intentional curriculum so well designed that a student cannot possibly walk through this institution without bumping into it. So when they have this at the foundational level, all of those different things, that's cool. I want to see it in each of your majors 2 different times. So we do the foundational level, and then what we do is we embed it in each of the majors at the mid-level and then at the advanced level. So I don't know how many of you have looked at the degree qualification profile. Have any of you used that? I mean, we patterned it after that. In fact, we were kind of before that, but our concept was that you needed to have it at the introduction, at the mid-level, and the advanced. So that the intentionality of the curriculum, I think, is one of the things that the university did very well. The second thing that we've done very well is making sure that we assess how they are progressing through each of one of those issues. So we look at it from the assessment piece of how competent are they in each of those. And so our learning outcomes are very much based on what skills, knowledge, and attitudes do each of the students have. And so that was part of that process. It took us a long time, and you know, we are still I would tell you that the story is not done yet. I think that there are things that we can continue to do better, but what you're seeing there is the result of that. And if you see in the top of that the issue of innovation, I think all of those things, if you put all of those things together, students should be able to innovate. Right? Because if they can communicate it, they can critically think about their major, they can make sure that they're doing it in an ethical way, their citizenship, so they understand that they're part of a world that is bigger than themselves. So all of those things go together, and our new tagline is how do you make sure that that is helping you be innovative in your process. So that's a little bit about us. I probably went longer than you anticipated, but that's where we've been and that's where we are.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zook. The next question is for you, Ms. Harris, and this really segues well. One of the most common questions that the coordinating board hears from the field is, what do you mean by marketable skills? How would you answer this question as a human resources professional?
Okay. First, I'm going to ask your permission for me to do some CJ-isms, and then I'm going to act like I'm a professional, right? If you heard my introduction, I was not the person focused on HR. I was studying to be an engineer. I became an engineer, then I got into management. When I got into management, that's really when I started noticing what was key in someone being successful in IBM. At that time, I was at IBM. And so I was going to campus a lot, meeting students, interviewing students. And so there's some core, I think, do I have a slide?
You do?
I have a slide. There's some core things that I've kind of taken away. And then there's some things that I want to bring your attention to that NACE has also done. They've done a lot of study and gathered a lot of information on. But this is something that I tell people all the time. We can go to the next slide. You have an idea of what success is going to look like, okay? And I transferred into HR, especially university recruiting, because I feel like I have a story that can relate to almost any student. I don't care what your major is. I tend to lean towards the engineering people. I'm sorry, but they speak my language, okay, and IT people. But I also have found that many students that are into marketing, finance, they are intelligent kids. I mean, very technical, suave that they don't even realize that they are, right? And so I end up telling them, I said, I know this is what your plan is for success, but let me tell you a little story, okay? And I share my story, and they're like, you don't even have an HR degree? And I said, I don't. I have no HR degree. I strengthen those marketable skills to help me be a candidate for an HR role through my positions as a leader in a software development team and then a manager, right? So the next slide is just some CJ-isms that I have pulled together, and I share this with every student I meet with, every student that comes an intern at National Instruments. And I love the fact that you are highly intelligent. We hire a lot of engineers, various types of engineering, but IT, marketing, finance. And one thing I always point out to them is that you gotta be socially intelligent. And some people go, well, what do you mean by that? Okay, how to shake a hand. You'd be amazed how many wimpy handshakes I get when I go on campus. I'm serious. And when I get a wimpy one, I said, let's do that over. And then they'll give me another wimpy one. I said, do it like you're really happy to see me. And then they laugh, you know, we have a little joke. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? And it gives me an opportunity to teach. And I'm saying, when you go for an interview, I'm just somebody gonna go through your resume and we're gonna have a couple laughs. But when you go for a real job, for a real interview, you gotta put something in your handshake. And they're like, well, I never, you know, I don't usually do that. Well, you about to start doing it. Okay, so socially intelligent, understanding not to use some of the buzzwords you use with your peers. I'm 47. I don't understand what you're saying. So talk to me, and I'm not saying talk to me in old people language, but I'm saying talk to me in a language anybody can understand. And this is what I point out to them, is that you are about to walk into majority of the organizations, whether they're a small company, mid-size or large, they're global. So you may walk into an organization working with people from different cultures, different countries, and you use some slang that we have no idea what you're talking about. So it's got to be, so that's what I'm talking about when I say socially intelligent, okay? All right, next one is adaptable. I had one incident where I was a manager where I had a gentleman and his peer, they had to share an office, okay? And when I hired the gentleman, I never mentioned it. I didn't think it was important, to be honest with you. And so he said, CJ, I realized I have to share an office with this guy from Pakistan. And I was like, well, what's the problem? You know, I can't do that. And I said, well, why you can't do it? Well, I thought at this level, I'm working on my PhD, I should have my own office. I don't remember us having that discussion. I said, do you want to work here? And he said, yes, I'm interested in the job. I said, well, let's try the office. Let's see how it works out for you. I said, unless there is something, that's going to do bodily harm to you, then we can take a look at it. I said, but I've been working with this gentleman on my team for 3 years. He's a good guy. You may like him. So he ended up, moving into the office, and he was okay. But I try to stress to students, be adaptable at the beginning, because that's gonna level set you so well in any type of project. So of course, whenever I had a project that came my way and I wanted to involve him, I thought twice because I didn't know how he would adapt to it, right? So I tell all students at NI, we hire about maybe 200 interns every summer. And I never tell them where they're gonna be sitting. Usually I don't know, okay, I'm gonna be honest. But sometimes it's in a nice little cube by a window, and sometimes it's in a cube where you're just facing the wall, right? But the thing is, you don't spend a lot of time in that space. You're gonna be collaborating, you're gonna be in the lab, you're gonna be in different parts of the building. So I say, don't get caught up in where you're sitting and what it looks like. Be adaptable, and people will always think about you first when they're looking at different projects or different initiatives. The other one, real quickly, is able to work virtually, okay? For 4 years, my last 4 years at IBM, I worked from home. Never met my team, never met my manager, but that is no excuse to you not being a well performer. And many of the students are going to come into the workforce and they're so used to a classroom setting and seeing everybody or working with a team right across, and they're going to be in for a surprise when they come to a company like National Instruments and their team may be in Santa Cruz or their team may be in India or Germany, and they may never get a chance to meet them. So one of the things I've been working with a couple of the universities of us just doing what's called a info session virtually. They come to the Career Center, myself or one of my peers, we get on Skype or whatever, WebEx, whatever they're using, to help students just get used to that type of feel. Because a lot of times, they may be working with team members that are remotely. And they need to be comfortable with, how do I get on to, I mean, honestly, I have not had any problem with the students. Usually it's the career services people that I'm trying to help get this thing going. But the students, they're used to it. They FaceTime, they do, Skype. I mean, they're very familiar with how to do it virtually. It's just that I think when they come into a work environment, they don't believe that that's to be true. And so it is. Okay, one more, and I think I have 5. Analytical, I don't care what your degree is. You can be in basket weaving. You gotta know how to just look at problems from different angles. And that is something that I stress to students as well. Problem solving is very key, and you just gotta, it kind of ties into being adaptable, being able to look at the problem from an analytical standpoint and say, okay, there's probably 3 ways to fix this problem. And all 3 could be totally wrong. That's okay, but we need to hear the students thinking. And the kids that are, I'm sorry, somebody else said kiddos, and now I'm starting to say that. I'm copying you. I apologize. The young people, the students who are in technical STEM degrees, they usually don't have this issue. They're very quick with that type of thing. But students who are outside of it, that's no excuse. You take a basic programming class or computer class, they will get it. And it's another language. It's like, oh, by the way, music students are excellent at this too, by the way. That's something else that Google and the rest of the technical companies are learning, is that music students have that analytical ability as well. Okay, last one, cross-culturally adapt. And what I mean by that is many of them are already being exposed to people from different cultures, but understanding that culture. For example, we may send you to another country and there may not be a McDonald's, okay? It's cool, it's no problem. There may be a Kentucky Fried Chicken. Just know how to be adapt when you go overseas. One of the things that I know many universities are pushing students to take at least 1 class or 1 semester abroad. That is beautiful, and I commend you all for supporting that, because it gives them this exposure to, it's not going to be like at home. And we love that. In fact, we've been thinking about our internship program. How could we possibly send some of our interns to our Hungary or Penang offices for 6 weeks? We haven't figured it out yet, but that just to give them the exposure of going to another country to understand how you need to be cross-culturally adept. And that's some CJ-isms, okay? That's not NI, that's not NACE. That's just something I've pulled up, but it ties a line great to what Dr. Zook and NACE is supporting.
It absolutely does. The next question I want to ask is for Dr. Zook. You mentioned intentional curriculum, and you mentioned skills, knowledges, and attitudes. How would you respond to what we've heard about stakeholder and faculty fears that your liberal learning outcomes, or LLOs as we call them, is an attempt to turn academic institutions into trade schools? How do you translate those learning outcomes into marketable skills?
I think that one of the things that if you remember that diagram, most of those skills are liberal arts based. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, and that's why we call them liberal arts, liberal learning outcomes. Although we've rethought the concept of saying liberal because it has a whole different connotation. But
true.
I'm trying to get the faculty to agree to call them lifelong learning outcomes, and then we'd be cool. But not yet in West Virginia. One of the things that I think is very important is that the university made a very strong and concerted effort to say that what we were doing was we were preparing students we were preparing them professionally within the context of a liberal arts education. So it was very intentional that most of our programs, we are very strong in health sciences, very strong in business, so our true liberal arts programs are not the major stay, but we did try to make sure of that. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, we did lose quite a few of our philosophy, English faculty that were there at the time. And I'll tell you why. If you remember on our sheet, okay, if you look around the inside, it says embedded. The word is embedded. And so a lot of what happened was, and if you come to our campus, we don't have general education. Sorry. We don't. We have liberal learning outcomes. And people can embed them in their major. So we have the basic core that they have to do that are very foundational level. Social science. We have an English requirement. We have a communication requirement that is very basic. But then after that, people are allowed to put this within their curriculum. So I'll give you an example. We have a course called International and two courses, an International Sports History and a domestic sports history. Well, that satisfies one of the, the check boxes in general education. That satisfies one of their history content. Now, you may say to any historians in the group, okay, you'd probably be, oh, don't do this. Okay, what we've done is we've said, in order to teach that course, you have to go through a round table, which is the faculty sitting around a table of all different majors, and say that I'm teaching this based upon historic principles. Okay, so even though I'm not a historian, I'm going to teach it based upon these concepts. So I have to have key assignments that are that look at the issue of having primary literature, that look at what happens over time within this process. So I have to bring my course to a round table that approves my embeddedness as being appropriate. And I think that's one of the things that the faculty at the University of Charleston did extremely well. They still maintain the control of the curriculum. Even though I may not be taking 2 literature courses, somewhere along the line, I'm taking a course that may be within my major. Another, and we have a different one that looks at the issue of ethical practice within health sciences. Okay, well, that's not an ethicist who teaches that. That's a nursing person. And so what they learn is, and I use the example of, if you wanted to change your oil in your car, you would want somebody to teach it within your car. You don't want them to have to teach it in another car that you don't have. You want them to do it within your car. So that's what the embeddedness does. So it allows people to really take advantage of it. We have a very small requirement for our core. We have, at this point, 18 credits in our general ed. After that, you're in your major. So we're doing professional education within the context. I'm sorry, I said that right, yeah. Professional education within the context of the liberal arts setting. And so people have designed courses to match that. Does that?
Yeah.
Do you have any? And part of it goes back to what she's saying, the issue of being adaptable. Okay, so I learned how to do this within my English course, and now I have to apply it within my business course. So now when I'm writing or doing any of the other critical thinking, I have to say, wait a minute, what was that skill back there? And how do I use it within this context? And so then they continue to do that. So the issue is repeating that over and over again until they understand how they can adapt it to a different area.
That's cool.
Very good. So the next question I have is for Ms. Harris. I want to talk a little bit about 60x30TX, or 60x30TX. It includes several examples of strategies to guide us towards meeting the marketable skills goal. And one of those strategies is to establish collaboration between institutions and state, regional, and local employers to define those desirable skills, and then identify the in-demand programs and courses that offer those skills. Now, several years ago at a conference, Jamie Fall, who's the director of Upskill America at the Aspen Institute, advised us to approach industry in a very organized way. He cautioned everyone that companies could become very overwhelmed if a lot of institutions were approaching a single small business with requests to collaborate on marketable skills. Now, the industry wants a voice in shaping marketable skills, but that's not their main purpose. How can institutions maximize their efforts to leverage existing relationships with business and industry while meeting the marketable skills goal, especially in identifying skills and continually updating them?
Right, right. So those skills may change every few years, right? How many of you are in Austin? Okay, all of you are in Austin. Okay. You mind, I know you're at ACC. What school are you at, sir? Oh, ACC. Oh, y'all, okay, cool. Anybody from UT or A&M? Or, I know HT. I had somebody here from HT. Okay, all right. So here in Austin, I think the best way to approach industry, we want to be approached, by the way. Don't be afraid to reach out to them, especially companies who focus a lot on university recruiting, especially, because we should partner all the time. Now, you could say, well, CJ, majority of the positions you recruit for, they have to have a 4-year degree. That's not always the case. And I'm going to speak for National Instruments. We hire software technicians, and they do not have to have a 4-year degree, okay? So there is still an opportunity to reach out to someone such as myself, whether you are at a 2-year program or a 4-year program, certificate program. We still hire administrative specialists. We hire software technicians, hardware technicians, engineers, financial people at different levels. So my thing is approach the industry, companies that are local in your city or near your city. If you try to go for, all the hot ones that the students want, like Facebook and Google, I say still try, because you never know. I know in the Laredo area right now, we don't have a high concentration on going to recruit there, but we recruit out of Mexico. That's not far. You may be saving me a trip, so we need to talk afterwards. But I recruit at about 5 of the universities in Mexico and in Canada. So the thing is, sometimes we don't know that you need us. So if you reach out to us and we can have a conversation, then we can open up some dialogue, and I could at least tell you what marketable skills are hot for my company, my industry, and every different company that you have a relationship with can help in that area. So that's the best way I would stress, is that you look at what your student body is, and then take a look at what companies your students are going to work for. Many of your career services presidents and directors can tell you, here are the top 10 employers. If we're getting your students, we should be helping you. That's my 2 cents on it.
That's fantastic. Dr. Zook, this next question is for you. What are some examples of some marketable skills that you've already embedded in programs in your institution? And I know you've touched on this a little bit, but for example, we've heard answers of marketable skills that can be embedded with the programs. We've heard things like Excel skills and presentation skills could be easily integrated into another course's curriculum. Tell us how you see this on your campus.
Yeah, I think that part of the issue is there are, and if you go back to my diagram, there's the major and there's the outcomes of the major, and we all kind of know what that is, and although I think sometimes we have to stay more connected, and I'm just going to tie back to your previous question. As a health professional, I'm very used to the concept of an advisory board. And in those advisory boards, you have people that come in and you have them look at the issue of, and you have the issue that I know what's going on in the clinic because I have this advisory board. And I think that one of the things that, I said this is a progressing story. One of the things we've just now started is unifying those advisory boards into a larger board, so that we can have the concept of not just what's going on in relationship to the health sciences, but what's going on in relationship to business and the other non-specialized accredited programs, because the ones who are specialized, they have to do that. But I think what that does is it's starting to help us think about, okay, what do they actually want in relationship to that
Exactly.
major outcome? And I think that's
Exactly.
the issue, is what's the major outcome, and then what are those embedded skills
Yes.
that we have? So, you know, I've already used communication, so I will go with the issue of inquiry. That used to be called, we have progressed. It used to be called at our school the scientific piece of it. You know how you have to have 2 biologies with the lab and all that
Right,
stuff.
right,
Okay. So
exactly.
we did away with that, and so we have this scientific, and it used to be scientific inquiry. We dropped the scientific because in reality everybody should be doing something about inquiry, and so one of the things that we in the roundtable that does the issue with the inquiry is we make sure that they tell students they have to ask why 5 times. You know, that 5 times why. That's part of what we have them do. So why is it that when I'm looking at the economy of this particular country or this particular area, why is it that we have poor people? Then what are the policies that go around that? And so the why question becomes part of that inquiry. So that every major has to have a capstone, and in that capstone major, they have to say, what is it that I do that helps me understand the whys of that? So it's that kind of inquiry. You ask about computer skills, and I tell you, we used to have a course called Computer Skills, and we decided that, hey, we're into embedding, so let's embed. And so what we did was we said, I'll use the example of accounting, and they need Excel. Well, we used to teach it at the beginning, and then the professor had to pick it up. Well, you've heard the concept of just-in-time learning. If I learned it back when I was a freshman, I'm surely not going to remember it when I'm a junior or senior. So
Sure.
how do I make sure that I support? So part of what we've tried to do is give them support from the technology piece while they're taking the accounting course. So so we dropped the software course. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm
Because-
glad. No, I think your approach is a lot better, because what happens is they're using it along the course curriculum that they've
Right.
chosen. So I think that's great.
Right. So and for instance, I dove into reteaching freshmen this year. So I've really, because I used to teach only graduates. So I'm now teaching freshmen, and we have them do a PowerPoint presentation. So what we do is we say, okay, there's somebody in the library who can help you with this PowerPoint presentation. This is what we expect. You need to go there and you need to have that conversation with them. So they have to, as they're doing something, and again, it's that embedded, it's intentional, it's making sure that they have the skills they need just in time when they need to use them. And I think that is very helpful for them to do. Now, there are some faculty who don't particularly like this because they want to have everything up front and then have everything done. So if you want to talk later about faculty, I'll do that too, but we'll leave that for right now.
I want to make one comment
Absolutely.
to something that Dr. Zook said. She mentioned advisory board. Check and see who's on your advisory board at Career Services. I know we're on a couple at the universities, and that's a good place to start to reach out to industry, because if we're on the advisory board at your Career Services Center, we're saying, hey, we want to help. We are here to help you guys, because we have established a partnership. And by the way, we pay to be an advisory board member. So, yeah, I just want to let y'all know that, yeah, I pay. I have the receipts to prove it.
Revenue generating position.
No, it supports the Career Services Center. So I don't want y'all to think it's under the table. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. It's a membership type of thing.
I'm going to follow that up, switching gears just a little bit. I mentioned in your introduction that you are a board member for the National Association of Colleges and
Correct.
Employers, which is also called NACE. How can NACE be a resource for institutions as they implement this goal?
Haley, I am so glad you asked that question. I think I have a slide on it real quick. NACE, and I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, with volunteers from members of the academia community and also corporate community, we formulated some core competencies, and then we also provided resources. And if you go to naceweb.org, you'll see the competencies, but you'll also see a link to the resources. So we don't want you to reinvent the wheel at all. Every, I think, member who has participated on that task force, we understand, we have the same challenges that you all have, and we wanted to provide something that would be easy to use, and at the same time, you have someone to go to ask questions about how can you be, better at what you're doing at your university.
One of the things that we all do is, I think most of us have internships.
Yes.
So when we send people to you for internships,
Yes.
What is the best relationship or concept that you can think of that will help you prepare for those, help us prepare the students for those internships?
Help me help you, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it has a lot to do with what I said earlier, the handshake. Okay. Simple things, handshake. We love students who are doing things outside of their degree program. It could be intramural sports, president of the foreign French club, or they've had an opportunity to take a semester abroad. But just showing us something that they are pretty much well-rounded. The other thing I would say is be able to communicate what you've done. So let's say, for example, you list, I worked on this radio frequency project in Engineering 101. Be able to communicate to me, what did you do on the project? I know you worked with a team, but what was your contribution? What was your expected outcome? And then what was your outcome? Usually when we go on campus, we're doing like a 20-minute interview. So it's not a whole lot of time for our interns. Mm-hmm. Now, for new college hires, it's a little longer, but for interns, it's usually about 20, 30 minutes. And I tell everybody, your resume is kind of like your 30-second commercial, right? So it starts with the resume, it starts with that handshake, and then what you share with me in that 20 minutes, of whether I put you in the top #1 spot or I put you in the #2 spot. So I think that would be a good way. Okay, we got it. All right, yes. All right, so a task force of college career services and HR staffing professionals helped develop a definition based on extensive research, and they came up with these 7 competencies, and it's so beautiful because Dr. Zhu already said a lot of them. Critical thinking, problem solving, the communication, teamwork, collaboration, information technology application, leadership, professionalism, work ethic, that handshake, let me know, what type of team player you are, and career management. Many of the students, they already know what they want to be. And I love that because, they have some sense of where they want to be right now, this moment. And I love that. I think that's wonderful. And they are listed on the website. There's resources there, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I highly invite you to go and check them out. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to contact me as well.
All right, thank you both.
Can I just make a comment? I said this was a progressing story, and when we first did the liberal learning outcomes, teamwork was part of that, and we have since, teamwork and leadership were part of those. And we've since dropped that as one of them because we've made it part of the pedagogy.
Oh, awesome.
So we mandate that at some point during that process of their key assignments and that kind of thing, that they do teamwork and that they do different things, leadership skills. And one of the things in the goals, you talk about this being the extracurricular as well as a curricular, and I think that's the other thing where especially in the residential campus. Now we have a fairly large online campus as well, and those people. One of the things that we've noticed is they're already working. Yeah. So we don't have the same type of issues that we need to do. Now we need to scale it up a little. We need to help them make sure that they're ready for the next step because that's where we're going. But when you're talking about the traditional residential campus, how do you construct that environment where they're going to educationally run into those types of opportunities? And I think that's where the residential campus can really help the traditional type of students.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys both for answering all of my questions.
You're so welcome, Hayden.
I would like to open it up for the audience to ask you guys some questions to be able to take advantage of our experts here, both in industry and in education. So does anybody have a question to ask our panelists?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think you guys are knocking it out of the park, by the way. Um, so my name is Ginger, and I'm at the coordinating board. And I wanted to mention that career services is new for us. As an agency, as a state agency, we've never engaged that group. And so could you, if you have any ideas or thoughts on what you might tell these decision makers on how they can engage their career services to start that conversation at the beginning of a college career rather than at the end, what advice would you give us?
I'm assuming you're talking to me, right? Okay. Okay. I didn't want
No,
to. If it was
I'll
Dr.
jump in. You go
yeah,
ahead.
we can jump in together.
Tag team.
I think I've been to so many universities, and two that come to mind that I'm very impressed with. Part of the freshman orientation is that they have to go and register at the career services. I love that because that means every incoming freshman has to go through that door at least one time. Many students don't know what career services can do for them. And when you introduce it to them as a freshman, at least they become familiar where it's located, what things that they can come and access. When I was at University of Houston, I think I was at the university for 2 years before I even went to the career services. And the only reason why I went was because one of the classes that I had, we were required to get an internship. And that's why I went, because I was like, how do you find that, right? And that's too long. I should have been kind of associated with it as a freshman, then maybe I would have gotten an internship, or I would have been able to define what an internship was. But many of your businesses, we start there first. And then we start with working on different advisory boards or working with different professors in the classrooms. So I think if you haven't partnered with them or reached out to them to help with this issue, this is a great time to start doing it.
Yeah, again, I agree, and I would refer you to the Chronicle of Higher Education just on Tuesday, October 23rd, which was whatever day that was. I've been flying, so I can't remember. But they had a whole article on reinventing career counseling. And so I would really, and I sent it around to our career counselors. But one of the things that I did, we talked about 3 or 4 years ago at the University of Charleston, was I started to notice the issue of professionalism and work ethic being a problem with the students, and not being able to start their career earlier. So one of the things that we've implemented in our first year program, people have first year programs somewhere in the curriculum. Our first year program, the students start making their resume right then. We've have a software package called Optimal Resume, and they start building that in the second semester of their freshman year. And that helps them to start thinking about where am I going, what am I going to be doing, and how that works. So that's worked really well. Let me say this way. It's worked well in the first year. Remember the embedded thing? I haven't been as successful putting it in the majors yet, so I'll let you know later how that goes. But I think that's part of it. Making sure that they understand that our career services are part of that second semester process. So I think that's important with that. The other issue that I think comes up is in relationship to internships. I do think we wait too long.
Yes.
I think that one of the things that we try to do is we wait until they're ready. And I had a very harsh conversation with one of the faculty members who said to me, and some of this may ring true for some of you, well, I don't require everybody to go out for internships because they're not ready. And I said, well, then you shouldn't be graduating them. So that was part of my thing. So part of what we have to do is make sure that they're ready. And I think that if we do it quicker, I think it would help with retention.
Yes, I think so too.
I think it would help them figure out what it is. Now, again, we're a 4-year school, so I'm not talking about the community college at that level, but I think that we really do wait too long.
Yeah, I do too. And one thing I want to add when we're talking about marketable skills, I don't want anyone leaving thinking that a student can only get them if they're at school or on an internship or have a corporate mentor. They can also get it in volunteerism. I volunteer a lot, and I see a lot of students who come out and volunteer, and they're practicing that handshake. You know, you don't think about it, but they are. You know, they're helping vendors. They're helping me as a team captain for the American Diabetes, and you'd be amazed at how talented these young people are. So keep that in mind, you know, because I look at that on the resume too. They do any volunteer work? Have they done anything, you know, just outside of the norm? So make sure that keeps in mind.
Does anybody else have any questions about understanding marketable skills and how that translates at your institutions? Anybody? Well, thank you very much for your contributions and for your time for being here today.
You're welcome.